Hey everyone. I wanted to make this video talk to you about a very important teaching, and it's related very closely to the connection you have with your own inner wisdom, your own intuition. It's very closely connected to how much energy you have and your sense of self-confidence, and it's also directly linked to your power of manifestation. And this is guilt, the theme of guilt. And I know this is not a very, sexy topic to talk about, but it's something that often operates in the background of so many decisions that we take throughout the day. And it often will take us completely off of our optimal timeline and put us into a reality where we don't belong, where we're not really valued, where we're not manifesting the opportunities that we need, and when we feel really disconnected from our own source and our own sense of well-being. Okay, so the first thing that we want to talk about is that guilt is very closely linked to our sense of wanting to be good, wanting to be a good person, wanting to be good with your family, wanting to be loving, wanting to be good at work, right? Helpful, right? That you have this innate sense of just wanting to be good, right? And most of the time, the guilt kind of is like a parasite on that part of you that just wants to be good, right? And it's also really closely linked to this sense of morality, or this sense like you're like kind of coming from the church, like you're never really going to be good enough, right? Like you always have to carry this weight on your shoulders of not being good enough, always feeling a little bit guilty. You couldn't really do it better, right? So this unconscious or collective agreement we have about guilt that keeps us bound to a certain reality that's much more limited and much more restrictive and a lot less fun than the one that we deserve, okay? And what happens when we keep ourselves in that sense of like morality, that sense of perfectionism, that sense that we need to be a certain way, like be so perfect and have this perfect reality in order to be good? What happens when you keep yourself in that little box? Well, a few things. One thing is that you get very exhausted by your own internal standards, right? You won't be able to keep them up. So one part of you will check out, right? I give up, right? And most of the time that giving up will actually look like some kind of rebellion. Like you're just gonna take off because it's too tight. That sense of morality, that sense of always being guilty, some part of you is gonna rebel from that and do things that are not constructive to your own well-being, or not really conducive to what you know is your own inner wisdom, or the best possible choices for you, the best possible environments for you, the best possible friendships for you. Okay, so I'm going to give a really concrete example about how this guilt thing works, because I see it so often in how we relate to our children, how we relate to our own bodies, our own dietary choices, lifestyle choices, how even in dating, right? Where we're like, well, I don't really like that guy. I don't think we're a match, but I just feel guilty. I'll just go out with him, right? So just to give you an example of how this works, let's say a friend calls me and asks me to go for coffee. And I know that friend is a little bit into negativity or gossip or drama, and I don't really want to go for coffee with that friend because I know it's kind of like a drain on my energy, right? But instead of just being straight with that friend and saying, you know what, I'm not available this weekend, I've got other plans, things I want to focus on, we have that inner wisdom that's telling us that that's not really the right choice or the right place for us to be with that other person. And we instead of just listening to that inner wisdom and being like, yes, that's the right choice, we will often, out of guilt, compromise our inner knowing and go meet with that friend, right? Can you relate to that choice? Where we compromise the inner knowing that that's not the right place for us to be, and out of guilt we agree, because we're trying to be a good person, we agree to go have that coffee. So it's a simple, small example, but if you've studied your energetic structure with me, you know that you have this potential to be connected to the heavens, the cosmos, the earth, right? And we are always connected. But in that flow, through that choice made with guilt, we're actually deviating the current. We're actually blocking off some of the chakras, leaving some of the chakras in the dark, or cutting ourselves off from that flow of intelligence that is our birthright, right? So we go have that coffee with that friend, and then afterwards we feel really tired, or we feel like we're not in the right place at the right time, or like reality is kind of boring and uninspiring, right? All of that coming from that choice, coming from guilt, right? Maybe we were meant to take a nap during that time. Maybe we were meant to be somewhere else having a sandwich, right? So we make so many choices coming from guilt that deviate us from the true flow of our inner intelligence and from the manifestation of opportunities that we deserve, that align with us. The other thing that happens when we carry a lot of guilt is that it becomes more difficult to hear our own inner voice, right? Because we're carrying all these concepts, these distortions. We've distorted the flow, right? And so we'll usually also attract and create, instead of being able to use our higher faculties to manifest, to project, to, protect our family, to create well-being and ease for ourselves. It's like we're carrying the sense of guilt. And then we'll usually create opportunities to actually confirm why we should feel guilty, believe it or not. So you send your child to school and he falls off his bike, or, someone in your family gets sick and you can't go, so you feel guilty, right? All of our reality gets seen through this prism of guilt, right? It's so disempowering, and yet it is so simple for us to start correcting it, for us to start waking up, coming out of that consciousness. So how do we do this? I have a few suggestions. The first one is to ask yourself if you're really guilty, to check, did I really do something wrong here? Or is this just part of, me exploring, me doing my best in the situation? Do I really have to feel guilty, or is there another option available, right? Can I just forgive myself for this experiment, right? And if you did do something wrong, obviously you can correct it. You can say a prayer, you can give a flower, you can, right? A million ways that we can, if we have done something that we feel we need to correct, there are a lot of different ways that we can apologize or show up in a different way, right? But the first is just to ask yourself, do I really have to feel guilty, or am I doing the best that I can, right? Huge. It's really big. Because most of the time we're doing the best that we can. The second thing is to take yourself out of choices that are coming from guilt, right? So again, that example of that friend, right? If you don't need to do things coming from guilt, what is the true source of my inspiration then, right? And usually that will create a kind of a stillness and a clarity in your mind, in your energy field, in your decision-making process that has integrity, that you can trust, and that other people can trust, right? The mind and the body, the energy frame calms down. It becomes much more cohesive, right? And the third thing is to watch the sense of feeling guilty in speech, right? When you catch yourself saying, I just feel guilty. I just feel guilty. Again, tune in and just notice, is there another option, right? Is there another option? Because when we start coming more from that place of inner clarity and sense of justice and the sense of self-alignment, there's really very little that you need to feel guilty for, right? Doesn't mean you can't make mistakes. It doesn't mean you can't have, embarrassing moments, or have, be learning. You're constantly in the process of learning. That's totally natural. But you're also in this process of constantly forgiving yourself as you grow. Just like a child is growing, you are also growing in your awareness and your ability to evolve and your ability to let go of old ways of being and to emerge into something new. So I hope this is inspiring to you. If it does speak to you, I'm also hosting a ceremony this week and it's related to guilt. It's related to authority figures. It's very, very powerful. It's called Soul Contracts and Energetic Sovereignty. If you're interested in joining us, I would love to see you. Please reach out for the details.